What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, then this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a young and bright assistant coach with a tremendous work ethic, great teacher, skill development, ability to relate to student athletes, and a young man that I see to continue growing in this business. And he's a native of Cortland, Virginia, Larry Blunt. Now I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Larry before we go on. It's not even that's my homeboy, and we actually he is 10 years younger than I am. We grew up in the same church. Both of our families, my grandfather, his grandfather, same business. Father was my eighth grade gym teacher. Mom played the piano organ in the church. So, we got a lot of history. His cousin is married to my cousin, and his cousin was a groomsman in my wedding. Has been a friend of mine for 30 plus years. So now this is family more so than just friends. So it's a guy I've seen to grow up. And, he was a guy who, he finished his high school career at Southampton High School, and he went on to Elizabeth City first. And he spent 2 years there, and he actually played football. And, I'm not surprised. His dad was an excellent football player at Virginia Tech. And then he goes to James Madison after 2 years and decided to make the change. He goes to James Madison University, where he ends up winning the national championship. And hopefully we'll get into that a little bit. It was kind of rewarding for him, probably where he actually grew up a little bit and defined himself and learned a lot more about himself. And then he goes to the women's side. He finishes school and he starts coaching. That's a passion. He got into coaching, and he's at Eastern Mennonite up in Harrisonburg, Virginia for a year. And then he goes to Shaw University in the CIAA with Robert Brickett for a couple of years from 2006 to 2008. And then he lands with Doug Vick, D. Vick, at Hampton Sydney for 4 years, 2008 to 2012. And then he decides to make a change. He goes up to Canada and starts coaching professional basketball at Oshawa Power of the National Basketball League up in Canada. And then he lands as he kind of is in the foundational beginning of the program and the grassroots program up in Canada, the Toronto area at Orangeville Prep, where they began a program where he has some outstanding players, a couple of NBA players, a ton of college guys. And then also worked with the AAU program, CIA Bounce, with Tony McIntyre and those guys. And so he ran that program for 3 years before getting into the college, getting back into college basketball. We had a chance to be at Canisius College, upstate New York, from 2016 to 2018. And they had some success, won the regular season there. I had a chance to be in some postseason play for the first time in a long time. And then, presently he's at Drake University out in Iowa. We're currently, as we're taping this show, he is, they're 17-0, and not wishing them good luck. So like I said, they kind of started that foundation, took the program over, and where they've gone from when they began to now is tremendous. And so I want to say, welcome to the show, Larry.
Coach, and I'm gonna go with Smooth because I know some of the same people that in our small town of Virginia, Franklin, and I really enjoy your show. I appreciate the platform, and I actually jump on a ton just to kind of watch and to kind of get a lot of those stories that most people don't know. So I really appreciate, one, what you're doing and the opportunity that you're providing for people. And two, I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to jump on and share some of my stories, the good, bad, and the ugly of this whole deal. But I'm excited about this.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. It's taking time out of your busy schedule. And so if you hear me say, I always know him as Larry. And if you hear me say LB, like everybody now is like, LB. And I'm like, who? I know Larry. So I'm going to call him like everybody else is calling him around the world now. LB. I think I'm gonna call him LB, even though I've known him all his life as Larry. So, like I said, welcome again to the show, man. And you know what? We'll get right to it and get unmasked.
Let's do it.
First question, man. I love asking my guests. There's no handbook, to being a college coach, especially like you were on the football side for so long, and then from as a college athlete, there's no handbook to being a college coach. Like, tell me about your first day, first week, first month after things are done with human resources or orientation, especially when no one gives you direction. Now, that could be when you started at Eastern Mennonite or when you went to Shaw, or like, talk about that, man. Like, how you just thrown into the fire and no one tells you what to do.
My experience was really unique. When I was at James Madison, as you mentioned, I transferred there from Elizabeth City State, where you're a graduate and had a really good basketball career as well. And when I transferred to James Madison as a junior, mind you, I grew 4 inches. So I went from 5'11" at the end of my freshman year at Elizabeth City to 6'4" at the end of that freshman year. I wanted to transfer and I set out. So my story kind of begins there. In that sit out year, because of the rules, I met Robert Bricky because they needed one more guy to play in their staff noonday pickup games. And I was the only one that was 6'4" that wouldn't knock them all over and would pass them the ball and get them all the shots. So that's kind of where my career started. That turned from that, and I kind of realized, man, I had a passion for this game a little bit more. And Coach Robert Bricky became a mentor. So I got a chance to sit in his office when I was a junior at James Madison, a redshirt junior. And I got a chance to do all the stuff he didn't want to do, some of the handwritten letters. I got a chance to kind of observe some of the film requirements. I got a chance to look at some of their recruiting documents. So for me, I think I had a bit of a unique head start because while I was on a football scholarship, I also had a chance to be in his office and kind of learn behind the scenes what was kind of going on from a Division I standpoint. And that was kind of where my passion for it, really kind of developed.
Awesome, man. Like, so I'll ask you this: recruiting. All right, we all know that's the lifeline of college athletics. You gotta, we always say you gotta get good players. The coaches always preach that. You always talk about you want to get good students. Like, everyone doesn't have to be a great student, an A student, B student, but you got to have someone who cares about their education, who wants to get a degree. So. And then you want to get good people. Like, when you have all three of those, a lot of times that kind of lends to success. Good player, good student, good people, or good person. Like, talk about, like recruiting. Like, when I say that is, talk about your best or worst recruiting story you may have had over the years. Talk about that.
Well, that's a loaded question. I think to the first point, I think, my perspective being a high school coach and helping to start a program in Toronto where we had 30 Division I players and 5 NBA players over that 3-year period. I mean, we had a lot of success. And from that experience, one of the things that I really took away from it was you have a very small captive window where people really genuinely will give you the time of the day in some cases. And, from that experience, a lot of those guys got done playing basketball and it was over. They didn't know what was next. So I learned personally from that experience, with our guys and guys that we recruit, I want you to try to take advantage of what this school has to offer while you're here for 4 years. Let's put you in a position where you can start preparing yourself for the next 40 years on and off the court. So I think with that, a lot of times, that's something that I'm really passionate about. I think when people know how much you care about them and how much you want them to succeed, I really think that they're more inclined to really give you what you want on the court. And I firmly believe that. But recruiting story, oh man, I think we all have those horror stories. I think my most challenging story, I was an assistant at Hampden-Sydney and we had a great budget. I mean, as far as recruiting, but the caveat was you had to be able to drive. So wherever you wanted to go, as long as you could drive it, you could go. And then the second carrot was that if you wanted to go, the majority of the time you had to find a buddy's house to sleep on the couch. So my biggest story was going to West Virginia and I was recruiting a young man, I'll say his name, Brant O'Brien. And this was when the cell phone GPSs first were coming out. So it would take you obviously the shortest route. And I'll never forget, I was going on the outskirts of Charleston, West Virginia. I get on a mountain and my cell phone signal just goes away completely. And I'm going up the mountain, and I get about a third of the way up there, and it's just like ice, snow. I mean, literally, I got no cell phone reception. I don't know where I am. I think I'm gonna die. And I'm just sitting here 10 to 2 in it, white knuckling it. Get all the way to the top of the mountain. I start coming down, it clears up. So I'm like, all right, we're good. Get cell phone reception. I get back to the bottom, and then you got to go back up another one, and it was the same thing. When I got down to the bottom of the mountain the second time, there was a big sign that said, you know, you're supposed to have chains on your tires. I had no idea, and I'm 10 to 2 into this little, you know, car. So from my experience, you know, that was tough. But then when I got to the gym, I mean, it's probably 3,000, 4,000 people in a small gym. It's packed. And I walked in the gym, and it was like the whole game just stopped. And then I looked around. I'm the only minority African-American in this small town. And it was like it just went, and we had a long, I mean, you know, the people were some of the most amazing people. They had cookies, dinner, and all those things. And Brant's is a great kid. I really enjoyed getting to know him. But when I had that conversation, the family, one, they were awesome. But then two, they said, you went the wrong way. You should have went on 64 and you would have went all the way around it. But I thought I was going to die twice. I thought no one would ever find my body, but it was a great experience. And I enjoyed meeting that young man and his family as well.
Awesome, man. Like, yeah, hey, like they say, hey, sometimes, man, you took the long route. Hey, you still got there alive, but you know, you probably they probably say, yeah, if you probably would have talked to them earlier, they probably would have gave you the advice, you know, early. So
that was a assistant coach. I didn't do my homework on the front end. If I would have called him and got that, I would have been in a better situation.
Like life lessons, man. You learn from that. We know this business is this profession can eat you up. So when I say that is, you know, you're married now, and you know you're a family person. You know, a lot of people don't know, like you're a very spiritual person. You come from you know, background. Your family is into the church. So like I said, very spiritual person. Like, what did you have to sacrifice achieving your current level of success?
That's a great question. I mean, I had to move, and I tell people I've slept in my truck on 2 occasions trying to get to Division I. My first time was when I was working in the mayor's office. And at that point, I was working at Harrisonburg High School as a JV assistant. I got kind of, at that point, tricked into coaching Division III women's basketball. I was under the impression I was going to get to be a D3 assistant men's coach. I showed up for the first meeting, and then in comes all these young ladies, which was awesome, great young ladies, and one of my first college experiences. But I was working in the mayor's office, fresh out of college, and that was my first job, obviously paying my bills. And Coach Bricky, who I developed a relationship with when I was in my red shirt year, and we developed, you know, we stayed in contact. He got a Division II opportunity at Shaw University in the CIAA. So he calls and he's like, you know, obviously this is year 2, coach high school, coached college. He says, you know, Larry, I lost one of my assistants. I can bring you in, pay you $20,000, but you know, I think it could be a good opportunity for you to crack into a full-time role. So me being the naive, gullible country boy I am, I go sprinting in the mayor's office, and they obviously knew I had passion for basketball because I spent a lot of time also while I was doing my job. And I say, you know, I think I got an opportunity to coach full-time, and I think it's something I want to pursue. So I turned my 2 weeks in. And that 2 weeks turned into 3 months. And, you know, so from that experience, I learned, one, never give up your job until you sign on that dotted line. That was my another hard lesson. But then the second time, you know, obviously I was at Hamden, Sydney, and I was there for 4.5 years with D. Vic, who's a great friend as well. And, you know, I was getting frustrated. I mean, to be completely honest, you know, I saw a lot of the guys that I looked up to that were in our league moving up, and we had a lot of success. We beat some Division I schools in the recruitment process, and I didn't get an opportunity. So from that standpoint, you know, 4.5 years in, I was like, man, I'm gonna take a chance. I moved to a new country. I didn't know anyone. And Bricky, believe it or not, was actually the person that helped set up the opportunity for me to go to Canada and to take on that head coaching role, my first opportunity. And you know, I had to sleep on the floor on a mattress. That was in a bedroom in Toronto because the pro team didn't pay very well. And then that team folded after year 1. And then the second time I slept in my truck was I couldn't afford to drive from Oshawa, Ontario to, where at that point where CIA bounce was practicing, it was about an hour drive with no traffic. And fortunately, AAU in the spring, it was starting to get 60 and 70 degrees. Instead of driving, I didn't have the money to pay for the gas. I would just sleep in my truck that was right outside the soccer center where they practice. And I would shower in the facility. So I did that for, at least 2 or 3 weeks, just trying to make ends meet to get between that pro opportunity until that, opportunity to kind of help start Orangeville Prep, and that opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, that's some sacrifice, man, within itself right there. Like, wow, you don't, I mean, until you hear it, like I really hadn't heard that story, but yeah, that's some sacrifice. Like, you gave up your career because this was your passion, and so now it leads to great things. And it's only going to get better. We talk about scout, man. That's a huge thing in this business and coaching. We as college coaches, it's your scout, and even though the team, I mean, the head coach is involved, everyone is usually involved nowadays. But you're in charge of that game. You watching 7, 8 game film. You are. You're getting the team prepared to be successful. And like, you're studying and you're hoping the kids, how you translate it to the kids is going to lead to success. But we forget a lot of times as assistant coaches or even head coaches that these guys got a lot of things going on in their life too. Like they got to study, they got tests, homework. And so it's hard for them to lock in as much. So you try to give them just enough so they can be successful, not too much to overload them. And you always can tell who scouting reporter is because that's who the person who's jumping up and down on the sideline. They're really invested in, we become tutorial, like everybody is my scout or, So talk about, and then there's also that scout report where you go into the game, you're telling coach, man, this guy, he's 2 for his last 30 from 3. He's struggling, but all coach heard was he was 2 for 30 and he's a bad shooter. And as soon as he make 2, make his 3rd, coach turning to you and saying, I thought he couldn't shoot. Coach, I never said he couldn't shoot. I said he's struggling. So what was your best and worst scouting report?
Well, I think, that's one of the things, and you've been on the sideline and you understand the pressure that comes with it. So, from our standpoint, I'm grateful that one, I've been on 2 staffs where that was really important to both bosses, with Reggie Witherspoon and Darren DeVries. And I think they forced us to do it, which was awesome. I think a lot of, guys in this profession, especially the minorities, they get sent on the road and, they don't have an opportunity to do as much scouting and to be involved, tactically with game preparation. So first and foremost, I'm grateful to have been with 2 guys that let me do it and that have really been patient and helped groom me and help me grow in those areas. But I think one of the things that I've really tried to do, and I think my experience living with guys in the dorm when I was at Orangeville, I lived with those players. So I got a chance to kind of see on a day-to-day and after practice what they did. And you're fighting for their attention span, like you mentioned. I mean, you're fighting with Twitter, you're fighting with Instagram, you're fighting with Snapchat, you name it. I can't even keep up with all the platforms and the media that's available. But so for us, we try to be really creative here. We try to send them scouts on their cell phones. For some odd reason, they always keep these things around. So we try to find ways to keep it short. I think their life experience with information, they're used to getting in short bits, whether it's 160 characters on Twitter, whether it's as much as they can do this for 4 minutes and watching what they get on their timeline. So that's what we do. We try to keep it short. We try to tell them the same thing multiple times instead of telling them 1,000 times. We like to tell them the same thing 1,000 times instead of telling them 1,000 different things. But it's unique. And we also, I think it's funny, we always say cover your behind, but every time we give a scout, it's funny, all of our assistants specifically here, we'll say he's not shooting a great percentage. He's shooting 20%, but he's capable. No dare shots. And I think, that's the beauty. I think no one goes out and recruits a college basketball player that hasn't done it at some point. You know, guards have to be able to make shots. That doesn't mean that, you know, guys, they're not better shooters. But at the same time, you know, we want everyone to score over defense. And, you know, we try to avoid the one where he hits the shot and you told him he can't shoot and coach looks at you and yells at
you. I'm listening to you and like those stories, like, I mean, it just brings back memories when some of the stuff you talk about. I like this, the give it to them in short or small bits, because they do, everything is, you know, we always say the attention span is like a TV commercial. I mean, that's just what it is now. And so the information you can get them in a short span, man, it's like a TV commercial to them, and they can just move on to the next thing. So I like that part, what y'all do with that.
Get them to give it back to us. I mean, a lot of times we'll say, okay, what can 5 do based on what we sent them? And, you know, we got a couple little unique tricks. Sometimes you'll do an edit and to test to see if they watched it. You might put at the end, the first one to call me gets free lunch. So, you know, like just little silly things because I say this, I mean, and I'm thankful to be with a boss that really lets us have fun with this. We don't take this overly serious. Now we're competitors and we're competitive. But I mean, I always say when I can't have fun doing this, I'm going to do something else. And I really, there is pressure that comes with the money, and, you know, there's pressure with opportunities to move up and you want to win, but like, it's a game. And I think we try to find ways to keep it light and to keep them on their toes. But it's, you know, I think one of the reasons that we've been successful is because we try to take that element, we try to remove the pressure and make it fun.
Awesome. That's awesome. What's the biggest challenge? And I've heard you say some things earlier, but like, what's the biggest challenge you've experienced since you become a college coach?
I think that's a great question as well. Like I mean, I think every day there are challenges. And one of the things I'll say, my father was a coach, and I would say this, I credit him with this. He always finds the positive in anything. I mean, and I really prided myself on that. Like, I think no matter what happens, whether it's a loss, I mean, I've been accused of just always being happy. But I feel like that. Like, I think life's not what happens, but it's really how you respond and how you react to it. And I enjoy them. You know, when things come up, it might be a young man may have some family loss. You know, and I think that's when people need you the most. It may be a scenario where someone's in a slump, they can't make a shot. And, you know, I think for them, they need some reassurance. And it may be a scenario where you lose a rival game and everyone tells you how bad of a coach you are. And I think, you know, you can find an opportunity to use that to get better and as motivation and fuel. So for me, like, I say this, like, it took me 15 years to become a Division I coach. I'm going to enjoy every second of this. I'm going to take it. I mean, obviously I'm competitive. I'm going to do my best to do my job, but I don't find many bad days because I'm getting a chance to do something I grew up dreaming of.
No, that's real good stuff. And all I could hear when you mentioned your father, when he used to always say, "What's up, Big'em?" Everybody was Big'em. You know what I'm saying? So, I heard that. I heard that in my head. It didn't matter how big you were, how small you were Big'em to him. And that's Coach Blunt. That was Coach Blunt. So, and I asked this. You kind of mentioned something that was interesting. Like, do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand? What are they? Because you said something about happy, but it might be something else as well. But do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand?
I think that, I mean, you know, I've actually had a booster at a different school that I was at come up to me and say, you know, LB is typically, like you said, what most people have. I don't know how I got that nickname, but that's way better than idiot and some of the other things I've been called. But, you know, I had someone to come up to me and they say, "How come you're always so happy?" And, you know, again, it could be a tie ball game. It's 55-55 with 45 seconds left and I'm smiling. And I really believe that. Like, I think anything that you do that you can be joyful with, I think you're going to be better. And, you know, I mean that. Like, when you've had to go through the various levels, I mean, my journey wasn't easy. I didn't come from a family that had a Hall of Fame Division I basketball coach. I wasn't a Division I player. I didn't even play college basketball. So I really don't take these moments for granted. Peach Jam, having a chance to be on the sideline with a lot of those good players, and and seeing the pressure of that, and seeing all those college coaches, and I was aspiring to do that. Like, all those things really, for me, I think it gets lost. It's not that I'm in a position where I'm not taking it serious. It's more that I enjoy what I do. And if I can't have fun doing it, then I just don't want to do it. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, is making things as fun as they can be, while at the same time still competing and doing your job.
Good stuff right there. Good stuff, man. Like, you come from, like you just said, mom was a principal, dad taught before he, got into his business. But like, so you're from a family of educators, and that's what I believe. College coaches are still educators. That's the basketball court is our classroom. You're always teaching, but you're also teaching off the court as well. So what do you try to teach or even educate to your players besides basketball?
Everything. I mean, I think finances, I think that's one of the biggest crutches that, a lot of young student athletes, when they're done, that they struggle with. So it's, things as simple as, we give our guys cost of attendance. And, I really try to sit down to them and explain to them, like, what does it look like if you do get Pell Grant using that, if you get camp money, and if you get your cost of attendance check, what happens if you save $2,000 or $3,000 of that every year, and you get out of here and you got $12,000 just stacked? And what happens now when you can go and now you have a little bit of money to put as a down payment, or a little bit of a slush fund to get you a little condo in town? What is your credit score? All these credit cards that you're getting, tell me what happens when you just use them and you pay the minimum. And our guys don't understand that. Yesterday we were in shoot around, and one of our guys came up and said, "Look, man, I got to do my taxes. Can you help me?" And that's refreshing, because most people they have no idea about what you do with what taxes are. They have no idea what a credit score is. They have no idea what it's like to get an internship in the summer and build some relationships that are going to benefit you on the back end. And I think as college coaches often, and I say this from being a high school coach, I think we're so short, and this is not all, I don't want to group all of us in a box, but I think this profession is so centered around getting the next player and getting the next greatest one. I think people don't spend as much time, in my opinion, and I'm saying that from being a high school coach, they spend all the time recruiting you. And when they're recruiting you, they know everything about you. They typically find out which road they should drive in so they don't almost kill themselves on a mountain. They know everything. They know your girlfriend. But, when you get there, I feel like that time spent shifts to the next player. And I think with us, that's something that's important to me, is trying to, and our staff, not just me, like all of us, it's common that we go to lunch once or twice a month with our guys, and we have them over to our house and talk about what it's like to be a husband, what it's like to be a man. And I really think, from that standpoint, those things are important, because when they leave, they can go out and they can impact change and help the next person along the way.
Man, all this stuff is awesome. I mean, I love that. And it's interesting. So when he talked about Pell Grant and he talked about cost of attendance, and this is so you guys understand, most of these kids, and I've been, man, you talking about being in this game for a long time. Kids get that Pell Grant, kids get that cost of attendance, kids get whatever money they get. The first thing is three things that they always gonna try to go buy a pair of Jordans.
Yeah.
They want to get Beat headphones.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get tattoos. Like, that's what they like, that's what they live for. I don't understand it, but that's what they do. They gonna blow that money, and then in another month or so, if not even that, they're like, "Coach, I don't have no money to eat." Like, I mean, it's unbelievable how they are. And so you gotta try to teach these kids, like, no, man, you can't just blow all the money at one point. But I remember as a kid when I used to get my Pell Grant money, man, I was blowing it too. So I understand, but those are lessons that we learn that you now can teach these guys, like, no, man, this is how you definitely do it. So I feel you on that, man, but I definitely feel you on that.
But it's stacked against the guys, I think from the beginning, because, I mean, let's call it spade a spade. The good players, the guys that are really highly recruited and highly touted, when they're in 6th and 7th grade, everyone's trying to recruit them. So now they're getting all of these, whatever your shoe alliance is, whether it's Yeezys on the Adidas side, or whether it's Jordans on the Nike, or whether it's the Currys on the Under Armour, and they just think that keeps coming. And, so now you have this mentality or this, false sense of reality that is going to keep coming. And now you get done with your 4 years and you got nothing to show for it. It's pretty cool to me on our team. We got guys yelling, man, I saved $15,000. I saved 20. Like, it's cool to see like their thought process shift. And I really think like that's the money that comes with this. Yes, you make a salary, you're compensated fairly for your efforts, but I always say you got to go back and divide it, take all the years that it took to get there to divide it between those years. So whatever your number is for me, divide it by 15 instead of divided by, 3 or 4. But at the same token, all of that, the money that comes with this, that pales in comparison to, when that dude goes and he calls you, man, I'm trying to buy my first house, LB, man, tell me what I should look for. Like, or you get that invitation with the guys that were wild and, along the way, and they get ready to get married. And like that, everything, the games and all that stuff. And I sincerely mean this, like it pales in comparison to seeing that and to see them, when they're in the position where they need help and you can kind of be there for them. Like that's what this is all about, in my opinion.
So true. So true. I totally agree with you. What are your best and worst memories in coaching?
Worst memory, and I think this may go outside of coaching. My junior year, I've redshirted as a sophomore, as a junior. So this would have been my 4th year of college athletics. James Madison, the second game of the year, we played a team, we won by 40 points. I want to say it was Lockhaven, D2. And everybody played except me. And to be honest, some of it was my fault. I didn't put as much time into it as I probably should have, but I quit. And it's the first thing in my life, the only thing in my life that I've quit. And that walk from the stadium to where I was living is about a 10-minute walk. My parents, everybody's there. They drove up from Franklin, Cortland, Virginia. And I'll never forget that walk. My dad passed me. He asked me, did I want to ride? And just thinking like, man, football was everything. Obviously, Southampton County, we had a lot of really good football teams and there was a lot of good players along the way. So it was everything. And that experience of being the humiliation of not playing and something that I really cared deeply about, like that's my hardest athletic moment. But I think it really shaped who I am. That team went on to win a national championship. And I'll never forget the night they won a national championship. Obviously, I'm still a student athlete. I'm finishing up my degree and everybody was calling, yo, you supposed to be here, Blunt, man. Where you at, man? Like, and that, like, I learned a lot of valuable lessons in that experience. One, it was the first time where I wasn't an integral part of a team where, it wasn't a chance for me to really be one of the guys that played. And that's hard. You get recruited, they tell you how much they love you, and you get there and it doesn't work out. So that stuck out with me. And I think it really has steered kind of my passion to working with the guys that may not be as highly touted and worrying about 10 through 13 and on scholarship instead of 1 through 10. And then I would say the best moment, I would say is I think that's tough. I would say Orangeville, when the 30th guy got a scholarship opportunity, and that made us 30 for 30 with guys getting Division I scholarships. I think that was a great opportunity. And to be honest, I got my first job with number 30, and that was Dante St. Louis and Selvin and Plananich. Those 2 guys helped me get my first job. So that was a great moment when they got their scholarships. So we were 100% with getting Division I scholarships. The championship moments are big time. Obviously winning, we won one at Missouri State to clinch the conference. We won one at Canisius to clinch it. The graduations, when you see guys walk across the stage and their parents, like it's hard to sum them all up. But my favorite moments are seeing the guys really succeed and kind of just that intrinsic feeling and that facial feeling that you get when you can kind of see it all come together. Like that's really cool to me.
Awesome. This kind of go off topic, so this is like a entertainment or humorous. Like, what is the strangest, maybe the weirdest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court that you may have seen? We don't have to say names, but anything you like, wow, he really did that? Anything like that?
Well, I won't say names. I lived with our players at Orangeville. And I'll say one of the guys decided to try to sneak out of the dorm. And it's snowing. Where we lived, I don't know if you are familiar with Schitt's Creek, the series. we actually lived in the motel where it was filmed. And, you know, just a fun fact, June 1st of every year of my 3 years at Orangeville, the company that filmed it, they would pay for our team to move into the hotel, to the local motel in town. And they actually filmed it there. So like, you know, if you can picture Schitt's Creek, that's where we lived. So we got about a foot of snow in Mono, Ontario. And I would just randomly check myself or our staff. We would just check, you know, the motel room. So we would run and, you know, 10:30 at night, knock, and it was kind of random. So lo and behold, I go to knock on the door and player A, I won't call his name, but I'll say player A is not there. So at this point, you know, and when I was at Orangeville, I was a bit of a, you know, I think Coach Parker from Southampton High School came out of me a little bit. I think they thought I was, you know, it goes crazy. And then I was probably right here, not quite crazy, but teetering the line. So, you know, I say, look, where is player A? And everybody's scramble mode now. Where is it? So they on their cell phones, you know, you got to come back. You got to come back. So I live, if you can kind of picture this, probably 10 to 15 feet from that strip of hotels that you see on Schitt's Creek or motels. I'm living in a little cabin, like right beside it. So player A comes sprinting over. He was like, and I'm asking, where were you? And he's in a panic. And he says, you know, coach, man, you know, I was doing laundry. So all is good with his story, except he's breathing hard, he's sweating hard. And I look down at his feet, he's got white Jordan 11s on, and they are just muddy from sprinting through the snow trying to get back. So I'll never forget that, like just that, him trying to figure out how to get out of it. And I'll never forget, he was so mad that those Jordan 11s were ruined. But I'll never forget that story. And in fact, that next week, we woke up at like 4:30 and we jogged from where we were staying to the facility, which is probably 8 to 10 miles. We jogged all the way there to kind of to help him get in better shape so that he wouldn't be breathing so hard when he got back. So that was probably one of my crazy stories. But the Orangeville deal, I'm starting to get a lot of those stories because a lot of those guys are graduating and the statute of limitations is expired. So hopefully next time I'm on, I'll have some good ones when they can come back and tell me what really happened in some of these good stories.
Of course, no question. That's hilarious. And it's funny you threw out Coach Parker, Lilton Parker. Like Squeak to me is funny because he was arch rival high school coach, graduated with my mom from high school together. So I've been knowing him all my life. His wife was my government teacher my senior year. You know, so you threw that name out. You know, that's a legend in Southampton County. So yeah, I had to shout out him. Even though he tried to get me to come over and play for Southampton my junior year, and I was like, man, my disdain. I hate Southampton. Even to this day, I know that's your team. I won't even play with them. Like if we're playing together in an alumni event somehow. So that's how much I always felt about them. But no, that's
your Indian red on.
Great name that you threw out there.
I thought you had your Indian red on, like you were going to switch to the home team.
Yeah, like that. What's you know, like there's so many great coaches. You work for a great guy. You work for some good people. And so I'd like to ask this question: like, if you had a chance to sit down and talk and pick the brain of 4 individuals, it could be living or passed away. Like if you had a chance to sit down and just pick their brain about coaching, about life, you got 3-4 hours to sit down. Like who are those 4 guys you would like to sit down and figure out, hey, what makes them tick and you know, and how they were successful in what they did?
Oh, that's another deep question. I mean, I'll say Coach George Raveling has been awesome. So, I mean, if that's a great mentor and I've learned a lot of things just from him, just his infinite wisdom. And obviously he's been around, so I can't use that. So I would go, and I've had a lot of coaches that have been incredible. I think that's the beauty of this profession is that you're on the road and you're getting dinner and a lot of people can share. But I would say like, I think John Thompson, what he was able to accomplish in the era that he did it, you know, I think it's incredible. I would say John Wooden. John Wooden is another good one. Like I think in a lot of his books, just reading them, like I think he understood how simplistic that things need to be. And I think a lot of people take a lot for granted, and he didn't do that, which I respect. That would be 2. I would say, and I want to make sure I put some thought into this. Let me see. Coaches, you stumping me this morning. It's too early in the morning coming off a game.
You actually got one more because you named George Ravel, unless you're not counting, because I know you know that was big with Nike. So I'll give you George Ravel. That's a great one though. That is a great one.
I appreciate it. You give. I need all the extra credit I can get coming from Southampton County. I would say, oh, that's a tough one, man. I just think you can learn so much from all the coaches. If I had to throw out a 4th one, I would say maybe Craig Littlepage. I mean, he's been a mentor and a great, resource. I think he's seen it on both sides, being a coach and also being in administration. So those would be my 4. I mean, amongst many others, obviously, there's a lot of great coaches, but I just like people that have really had success and also had, poured into a lot of the lives of young people as well.
Awesome. Good for Craig Littlepage. That's one you pull out and people don't realize, like, how much, he did. I mean, going back to the Penn days and, being at UVA, he was an assistant there. Like, so yeah, people don't realize that, like you said, as an assistant, he was an assistant coach and he also was an athletic director. So like that, I mean, that's a lot of time spent at UVA. I'm gonna kind of go to this side a little bit. It's a little different. This is, you probably don't have to think as much, but it's kind of entertaining. Like, okay, what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
First of all, I have ADHD, so I can't sit and watch movies. That bird started flying, and I'm all over the place when I watch a movie. But I would say, the movies that will probably describe me, I really have enjoyed getting into. What's the movie with the guy that was convicted? He was a felon, and then he became a lawyer, and he represented a lot of people. It was on ABC. Oh, what's my show? I mean, dang. I watch it almost every. I may have to ask my wife on this when it's. Oh man, it's. Hold up, I'm gonna get back to you on that one.
That'll work. We'll figure it out. I love that.
The storyline is it's a 50 Cent. He produced it, and basically it's a deal where there's a guy that's a lawyer that goes to jail. He's falsely convicted. He gets a law degree when he's in jail, and then while he's in jail, he learns to represent people. So he eventually gets himself acquitted. But then his passion is to go back and help a lot of other people that were wrongly convicted in the legal system to become acquitted. I just like that, like fighting for the underdogs. And, that's me. I enjoy that.
Okay. I mean, I actually like that because like you said, that's who you are. I like that. So what's your favorite word or phrase? Because now you work, like you probably can pull some Coach Parker ones out if you wanted to, but like, what's your favorite word or phrase that you like to use?
Oh, I think you would have to ask our players that. I mean, I yell a bunch of stuff all the time. One of them I know I always say this is college basketball. Like, it's starting to feel like college basketball, like whether it's, practice that's getting heated and fun, or especially when we get ready to show up for a game and they may have nerves. And, so college basketball is one. I always yell. I'll yell all sorts of stuff. I mean, one of the things that I enjoy the most about this profession, and I enjoyed working in the mayor's office for 3 years, but I couldn't just go in there and start yelling. In college basketball, you can just start yelling. It doesn't have to be anything like negative, but it can just be funny. Just start yelling, let's go, or let's get it, or I just enjoy it. It's fun, man. I get to be a kid every day.
That's awesome stuff. When you say that, I just remember you. I think it was like a commercial you had. Oh, they were filming something you was doing, and I think it was the teaching Jamal Murray with the playoffs. That was pretty funny last year. That was actually hilarious. You show, I guess it was the dance or whatever it was. That was actually pretty funny. I enjoyed that one. What?
That was our media team. That was all them on the suggestion for that. Jamal don't have any rhythm. I had to give him some crap on that. We got to make sure we help him get his left, right together. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what it was, the left, right. I like that. That's what it was, the left, right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think basketball wise, I guess it's two. From a basketball standpoint in this profession, in this industry, is that, you know, you need more friends than enemies. And kind of the backdrop was, I was obviously a D3 coach and an aspiring D1. So I'm calling all these guys, and I'll try to keep it quick, but, you know, long story shorter, I was the dude, because we didn't have rules at D3. I was working with Bull Williams with some of their elite camps. I mean, I got a chance to work with Keith and some of their elite camps with Takeover. And then also I was getting to know like all the young kids, because we didn't have any rules. Like wherever you could drive, you could go. So all these Division I coaches was like, man, yo, LB, man, tell me what you know about who's the best 14-year-old, 15-year-old in the state. And I knew them all. I mean, I was going playing cards with, you know, people, and just like, I got to know everybody because we didn't have rules. So when I went to Canada, all of a sudden, all these people I didn't have value for that I'm calling, they wouldn't take my call. And I'm like, man, you know, I'm hurt. It's the first time that, like, I thought they were my boys because I was calling them and they would take my call, but they wanted information. I had value to them. So then, you know, a year later after leaving there, now, you know, they see me on the sideline in Hampton, Virginia, the first EYBL stop at the Sportsplex, Bull Williams. Man, I'm sitting on the sideline with the 16s, so Dylan Brooks, Jamal Murray, Techie, you know, Kyle, you go through the whole gamut. I mean, it's NBA players. And man, my phone blowing up. Now I had an orange phone that was in the US because I couldn't afford to use my Canada phone. I had a black phone for Canada. So my phone, LB, what's up, baby? Let's catch up. Man, everybody hit me. So like, all right, I'm like, man, I got my boys back. Like I got my friends back, baby. Let's go. So they hit me, you know, I'm texting them back, man, where we going? So we're like, man, we're going to get together. There was the Hooters on Mercury, you know, that's near the Sportsplex. We had a little croaker spot. I mean, we all over the place. And I'm just, man, I got my friends back, and I didn't understand like how it worked. So fast forward, the summer in, and now we started Orangeville, and I'm the coach there, and you know, we like, let's keep these kids in Canada because they don't need to go to the U.S. Why not be able to play, and then you know you can see your mama and dad on the weekend. So lo and behold, it's the first year, all these dudes that were hit me, man, I'm back boys with. We got Jamal on the team. We got Kyle Alexander. We got, I mean, you name it. All 10 guys are Division I players, but they 10th graders. No, and then so now I need all these coaches. Look, man, just do me a solid. Just come, you know, validate our program, stamp it. We got a lot of good players, I'm telling you. Crickets. I can't get them to call. I can't get them to answer. Nothing. So then fast forward the next summer, obviously the same thing. I'm on the sideline with all these AAU kids again that are prominent, and everybody knows, and they hit me again. So everything changes, and then in the summer, Thon Maker shows up. Man, I'm coming to Orangeville. Man, my phone was going crazy. So I'm like, you know, man, all these people, my boys again, I'm like, man, this is dumb. And at this point, I'm getting frustrated because people are starting to show their true colors. Man, when I got something you need, you want to, you know, and I'm understanding transactional relationships. So, you know, now I want to coach college, and nobody's returning my call. And I'm thinking, man, you know, I'm living with these kids. When they get in trouble, I got to punish them. I got to be the bad cop. I'm working them out every day. I'm feeding them. You know, and we have a whole team of people that's working together to help these kids get to their goals. And then, so now I'm getting frustrated. So now these coaches call and I ain't answering. I'm like, man, you know, I'm hitting the button, ignore. They call again, ignore. And I had a mentor of mine that said, you know, Larry, you know, a bunch of coaches are saying you're not calling them back. And that was when he told me that phrase. And I wanted to get a backdrop because it stuck out to me. He said, Larry, you know, you really, in this profession, to be successful, you got to have way more friends than enemies. And lo and behold, one of those coaches that I finally called back, he was the reason I got my first coaching job, because he kind of gave me a heads up before all of it was happening. My second job was another coach. The reason I got to Drake was because a coach that I followed back up with, he eventually ended up giving me a heads up. So that was my biggest, probably the best piece of advice I think I've gotten in the profession, and a life, you know, piece. And from my parents and growing up in Virginia, I think they always said, you know, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I really think like that can take you a long way in this deal, because, you know, ultimately there's a lot of pressure that comes with this. And I think it's still important to try to treat people the way you want to be treated.
Awesome. I'm glad you shared that, because people need to understand, like, you're only like you talked about value, is like when you have something they want, they will blow you up. And a lot of young people don't understand that. They figure like it's always gonna be this way, and it's not that way. I mean, I was the same way. I'm coaching high school basketball at Oxon Hill, and everybody wants to call you. And then as soon as you get on the same side that they're on, no, that changes. That changes a whole lot. Like, because you're in the same profession as them, you're in the same business with them, and so you're not the loved guy anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I trust me, I understand that one because that happens. As long as you got something for them, they're gonna call you. You know, that's what it is. You're not a self-promoting person. You never have. You come from great family. So that's you know, one of the main reasons why you always been a humble kid. But I'm gonna ask you this: if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, like which would you choose?
First one would be goofy. I mean, I say that like I really believe that whatever I do, if I can't have fun doing it, I don't care if it's hard work. If I can't find a way to make it fun, I don't want to do it. So I would say that. I would say hardworking. I think in this, in anything you do, if you want to have some success, typically is what you do when people aren't watching more so than what you do when they are. And then the third one I would say is I'm loyal, probably to a flaw. Like if, you're my people and you're someone that I really trust and love and respect, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you're good. So I would say those 3 probably, in that order.
Great 3. So that's what people don't. Loyalty, everybody say that, but everybody they don't follow through on it. That's not always something like everyone says that word, but I mean, what does it mean? And who's loyal and who's not loyal in this business. What person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
Person, I mean, that's a long list. I mean, my parents, obviously, I would certainly say that. Like, I mean, I think I may have set the record for punishment growing up because, man, Lord knows, well, they probably can give you some great stories. Coach Parker, I mean, I would say I think I was in the last phase of guys where you can have those real 2-a-day practices. And I mean, I could tell you stories. I mean, I'll just say this. We practiced 3 hours every day. I think we had 2 or 3 water breaks. I mean, it was so hot. One day, Coach Parker passed out, and I'll never forget the ambulance coming down, and you could see the sirens, and then we practiced on a dirt field. By the time we got done with the first month, the ambulance comes down in a cloud of smoke, picks him up. He gets on the ambulance. It goes back up the hill. All you can see is dust. You can hear the sirens, but you can't see them. And then 5 minutes later, you start hearing the sirens, but you can't see it. You see dust, and he's coming back down. And they bring the ambulance back down. Coach Parker gets off, and he says, you know what? These guys are running 2,100-yard sprints before they go home. Now, he didn't pass out from heat exhaustion. They took him to the hospital. And I can tell you one thing, we ran every one of them 2,100-yard sprints. But that's why we were so good. I mean, it doesn't matter. NFL players that were there, I mean, if they did something wrong, they won't play. And he held them accountable. And I really respected that. But I will say this, like as hard as he was on us, like you knew he had your back. And he knew that you knew that he was going to be there for you when it was all said and done. So I could tell you stories all day about him. Every coach that I've worked for has been awesome. Even every coach that, I've had the privilege of playing for, you just learn so many things, good and bad, like things that kind of shape who you are. And I think the one experience, I mean, I always will lean on that JMU experience. I mean, I always reference it as the walk. And, to watch that team to go on and have success with a lot of guys that I had great relationships with. Even not having a great playing role. I mean, I had kind of a coaching mentality. I was a dude that always listened. I was a dude that they put the recruits with typically, even though I didn't have a big role on the team. So I felt really connected with the group, but just understanding that feeling of not playing and, the humiliation that came with that. And again, some of it I did to myself. I want to be fair, but I think that was, for me, that was a moment that I look back in my life that really shaped who I am. And it really gave me my passion for coaching and trying to really do the right thing by people.
That's awesome. And actually, you always learning and growing in this business, and you saying all of that, it was, a lot of times you go to college because it actually helps to show who you are as a person, and that kind of defines you. It's not always the reason why you go to college just to get an education, but it also helps to shape you, like you said. It helps to define you. It tells you who you are, who you can be, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's not always your education isn't always a degree. A lot of times people think they misunderstand that. Well, look, man, Larry, I like to end in this question. This is the last question I like to ask, because like knowing what you know now, what would you tell your young self or younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
It's another great question. I would tell myself what you see on TV isn't, what it really is. And I say that, as an aspiring coach that really had to grind. And I don't think any of this happened. I'm a man of faith. I will say that, and I don't apologize for it. And I wouldn't have met my wife if I didn't move to Canada. At that point, I didn't see it, and there's a lot of things I wouldn't have understood. I know I was also guilty of thinking, man, we got all these really good players. I should be going to a Power 5. But looking back on it, I'm thankful and I'm grateful for Canisius for those 2 years with Reggie Witherspoon and learning the craft and the profession, and then coming here and learning and being with good people and growing. But I think when you're young and you're aspiring, you don't understand what really comes. And I think I would really, if I had to do it all over again and I could learn from this experience, I would have been more equipped. I would have found ways when I had resources at Orangeville or leverage, or like you mentioned, something people wanted. I would have found a way to have gone to colleges and learn how to use sports code, or I would have learned how to use synergy, or I would have found ways to be able to, because at that point they would have let me in and given me more information or access to information. I would have asked to learn how to build a scouting report the way they do it in college. So if I had it to do all over again, I think I would have done that. I think when I was coaching high school in AAU, the misconception was, man, you can go do this. I just go give me some players and bring players every year. But the more I do this, the more I understand, the more you can do, the more value you have, the longer you can stay in this profession. And I think it's more than just being a player getter. I think it's being able to deliver those detailed scouting reports. I think it's being able to interact with boosters. And I think it's the ability to interact and engage your administration and your campus community. So that's the long way of saying, I think one is not what it looks like on TV. And I know, it's completely different than what I thought. But the second part is I would have done more to have been more equipped. So when I got my opportunity, I would have been even more prepared.
Awesome answer. And you know what? And that's why Unmasked came about. Because like you said, it's not what you see on TV. Everyone thinks they see the finished product, but they have no idea what goes on behind the scenes, like what gets you to that point. Because one of the main questions, like everyone always asks, is like, so what do you do in the off season? I'm like, off season? There's no off season. Or what do you do besides coach? Coach? Like, there's no, they think you teach because you coach for the teach, or like there's some other job. And I'm like, do y'all even understand like what college athletics is? Like, we're like, that's a 355, 360 days a year job. Like, when you supposed to be on vacation or you taking that time, like you're not even on vacation because you're on the phone dealing with a recruit, and like trying to get them to campus. So like, you got to figure out how to sneak in that time away from your wife or your girlfriend. Like, you got to figure that part out, because she like, no, you're on vacation. No, yeah, we are, but you know how that is.
And not to mention your current players. I think the guys that are good at this, when they go home, especially with the transfers and the portal, I think it's more equally important, if not more important, to continue getting to know and building relationships with your guys.
Right.
So, it's pretty common practice with our staff. Our players are texting us, man, you see that rap video? Did you hear the new Drake song? Whatever it is, Lil Uzi, whoever. It is. They're family, and people throw that word loosely, but to be good at this and to really do your job and to really kind of foster those genuine relationships, not the fake, the transactional ones, but like the genuine ones, it requires time. And it's, I think most people, I can say, if someone was to ask me what college basketball was and why I wanted to do it and how that compares to what I thought it was as compared to what it is, it's light years. And I would also say conversely, if someone was to tell me what AAU in high school was, I don't think as a college coach, you can have that perspective. You've been a high school coach, you know what you come out of your pocket with more money than you make, trying to, and most people can't appreciate that. It's just both sides are so different. And unless you've experienced both, you can't, your understanding and appreciation of it can't exist because you haven't done it. And I really appreciate this platform for those reasons that you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I want to thank you again, Larry, for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything you want to leave with the people before we go?
First, I want to make sure, that I say that the movie that I like, the series, my wife just yelled up because she's the MVP in this whole deal. The name of the show is For Life. Great show. So I make sure that I give 50 and his team the credit they deserve. But I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to kind of relive and open some of the stories up that kind of still sting a bit. But I really will say, in part, and I always tell young coaches that are doing this deal, and I'm young in it, but I always say this: like, if you do this with the idea of keeping the kids and the young people first, the money will come. And I think so many people get caught up in the shortcuts. Like, I always will say that if you keep the kids first and their best interest at heart, and it's so many more qualified people than jobs. So that doesn't guarantee that you get it. But if you keep the kids first in this profession, eventually it works out for you, regardless of what level. So that would be my parting words, man. It's please do everything in your power to keep the kids first, because everything becomes so transactional, and that's so unfortunate in this deal.
Yeah, awesome, man. Still dropping jewels at the end, and it's interesting you use the word sting, because when I first got into this, and like I started doing Unmasked, and a friend of mine is actually his wife. She's an attorney. And she was like, yo, I really think he has something going with this. He saw the first pilot of the shows, and she was like, you know what? What he's doing is therapeutic.
Sure.
Like, because people feel comfortable of talking to him and saying things that they probably wouldn't say to a normal person. And so when you say that, it's like you're laying on the couch and you're talking to me, or you're in the barbershop and you can just open up and talk. So I kind of use therapeutic, I use educational to educate these young coaches who say they want to get into the business. And then I use entertainment, because some of it is entertaining and like you get laughs out of it. So yeah, it's not purposely that it's therapeutic, but like I think people just feel comfortable and they feel like you can open up about anything and talk about anything, because it's not that I'm trying to hurt you, but it's way that you can express yourself to people you probably have never told these stories before. That's what people don't understand.
It's so, I everything that you just hit on is spot on. And I'm grateful for you giving me the opportunity to check off all those boxes, because you spend so much time worrying about your current team or the next recruit, or, how do you figure out a way to beat the next team that you play? Like, it's awesome to kind of go back and recap the journey. And I know from my experience, there wasn't a lot of places where you could get the unadulterated, unmasked truth of all of this. So if I can help, and I will say that's important as well. Like, I'm not saying this, and I'm not just throwing it out, because I know that I reached out for help, and some people helped and most didn't. If I can help young coaches, with ideas, I really take great pride and joy in doing that. So my emails is on our website. It's coachblunt@gmail is my personal one. If I can help anyone in any way, like, please reach out. Obviously, there's some time restraints, just obviously with regards to the season, but I really enjoy helping young people trying to break into this profession, given that they really care about kids. And that's my biggest piece. If they genuinely care about kids, then I'll do everything in my power to try to help them. So I also will close by saying, if I can help, please let me know. I really genuinely mean that.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you again for coming on. Thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time and stay safe.
Thank you.